dot, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
liberty and
liberty and justice for all.
All right, well, thank you everybody for attending tonight's meeting. It is March 2nd. As required by the governor during our stay-at-home issues here, I need to read the following. So if you guys want to come back in half an hour, I'll be done with it. COVID-19 public meeting procedures notice due to the coronavirus and Governor Sununu's emergency order number 12 and according to his executive order 2020-04. The Henniker Board of Selectmen is authorized to meet electronically. The town of Henniker will be utilizing the Zoom platform for this electronic meeting. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen to the meeting, which was authorized according to Governor Sununu's emergency order number 12 under Executive Order 2020-04. All members of the Board of Selectmen can communicate during this meeting through the Zoom platform. The public has access to listen to as well, and if necessary, participate in this meeting by following the link below or dialing the number and entering the prompt's ID number. For those who want to provide public testimony in the public hearing portion of the meeting and connected to the Zoom website, you may click on the raised hand icon in the attendees section of Zoom to request this. When the time is appropriate, you will be recognized so you can provide your testimony. For those calling in who want to provide public testimony, dial *9 to alert the host that you wish to speak. The host will unmute you to the appropriate time during the public hearing portion of the meeting. All participants, please keep your phones and computers on mute unless speaking. For those that need the address and/or a way to contact the town administrator to make a connection, if you go to the homepage of henniker.org, we can take care of you that way. So welcome all. I see that we have a healthy audience this evening. I'll move the agenda around a little bit here. Is there entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Hooper, seconded by Leon. Further discussion? We'll do a roll call vote. Chris, yes. Vice Chair Hooper.
Yes.
Leon.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Peter, you're out there.
Peter is in here now.
Peter is in here.
He's
Roll call
in the
vote.
meeting.
Peter, just give a thumbs up if you're good with
Yeah.
consent.
I'm here. I'm okay.
All right, we'll move right along into public commentary. Are there any audience members that wish to address the board on any issues that are not currently related to or not on the agenda? Please signify by making a motion in the text box or waving your hands or do something to direct attention. We will do our best. Vice Chair Hooper and Joe Devine are monitoring the text box. So is there anybody that wishes to address the board? I concur with Joan. It is good to see everybody's face again. So welcome back. Figure out this Zoom platform. Figure it out yet. Anybody here?
Mr. Chairman, there's nobody indicating so far.
Okay, without any public commentary, we'll move right along into new business. Item 5 is an update from Mike Tardif. Welcome aboard, sir. Executive Director of the Central Regional Planning Commission. Joe, can you unmute Mike?
Yep, I just made him a co-host. You should be able to unmute and go to town.
Welcome aboard, Mike.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. Talked to Joe a bit about giving you an update of where we are with the 9/127/202 intersection project. We're about halfway through the 10-year plan process. And I was, you may have seen, we put out to public notice our most recent transportation improvement program, and it's 3 cycles ago. The project was added to that, and with a construction year of hopefully 2026, and we're we're working our way through that 10-year, that it was added to the 10-year plan with the construction year of 2026. But with some preliminary engineering outlined in 2023. The original budget was about $1 million for an intersection improvement project. The budget is now in the most recent DOT documentation about $2.7 million. And the positive note, I think you may have been noticed that there's going to be a second joint public meeting coming up later this month, that that preliminary engineering on the part of DOT and some of the data collection is happening earlier than we expected. So, I take it as a pretty positive process, that those conversations are underway right now, that there is a more reasonable budget for a intersection project. The $1 million that was originally there was pretty light. The construction year has been moved up to 2025, 2026. So that was a positive development last time around. And I think things are still progressing. And honestly, with the meeting coming up and the fact that additional funding has been set aside and moved up to 2021 on the part of DOT, I think all bodes well for that planning process. But we're still looking at a 10 to 12 year project development process, and we're about halfway through the 10-year plan process.
Very good. Thank you.
Certainly.
Questions from the board? Scott?
Yourself? Yeah. Hi, Mike. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Scott.
So do we know what the plan's going to be? Intersection or rotary?
We do not. I think that's part of the conversation that to start having or continue having on the 25th. The last time we had a shared meeting, I think there were a lot of conversations about the pros and cons of different types of different ways to address it. I think the budget, from my perspective, is not there for anything that would involve, a larger kind of exit on, exit off, typical intersection improvement. So I think the budget is probably more of a roundabout or a light versus
No bridges?
an interchange.
Yeah.
But, I expect to hear more about that from the DOT staff, what they're, thinking. But I think also they're looking to hear what the two towns are thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, I've been pretty pleased though with how the preliminary engineering process has gone, because like I said, it's happening earlier in the process, and it happened, the last meeting was a lot sooner than usual. This is even sooner than typical, because we expected the preliminary engineering to happen in federal fiscal year 2023. So we're a little bit early.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We had the last meeting in Hopkinton. Will we have the next one? It's probably by Zoom or something, huh?
It is by Zoom, and I from what I hear from the project engineer, the notice will go out shortly, probably next week, for that Zoom meeting. In the meantime, our staff are looking at the zoning and the existing uses on both the Henniker and Hopkinton sides to provide more information to DOT when they're looking at project development. So we need to circle back and talk with Joe and Mark on the Henniker side. We've been talking with the EDC over in the Hopkinton side relative to that, kind of being a little bit more, having some build out information for that process that DOT is going to go through.
Joe, can you just make sure that when that notice comes out that we notified the businesses along Old Concord Road? So if you want to participate, they can.
Especially Dunkin' Donuts.
Absolutely.
Yes.
But I think my takeaway is that they have added some funding for the preliminary engineering even over the last year. So it's a stronger budget for that engineering. So it's earlier, but it's a little bit more money as well.
I'll vote for the rotary.
Why do you think it's still a 10 to 12 year process?
Just, ultimately the construction's 20, we added it to our regional tip back in 2015.
Yep.
And ultimately the construction, I don't think it moves up or any earlier than 2025. So I'm just talking about kind of when we first got into our regional transportation improvement program and then into the 10-year plan, it ends up being about a 10 to 12 year process.
Mike, are we seeing any indication that the federal government might be dispersing additional funds through their new initiative on infrastructure, especially for roadways? Is that
So some of the stimulus money had some highway funds that are helping with that. And who knows what the next Transportation Act will have. I think when you get this close to a project, though, it's awfully hard to accelerate it more than just the typical planning process.
well, I'm just thinking if there would be additional funds. So, that interchange that seemed very popular instead of the rotary could happen instead.
I would say my understanding of how the process works, that if there were additional dollars allocate, if that ended up being the recommended project scale, that it's not going to happen in 2025. You never know with the new infrastructure bill and how that works, but there are a lot of projects that are in the queue that would be working, looking to use that funding as well.
Oh, I know.
Okay. Further questions from the board? Can you just, in general, rough out what the public timeline is for them to get input into this? I know that we talked a little bit about the 25th, but at various points in the next few years, can you say what public, because I'm sure there'll be a lot of opinions once this makes the newspaper as to what to do.
Absolutely. And to be honest, I'm not sure exactly what the next step for DOT will be. And we can ask that to them on the 25th, the project manager, about that. So this is really phase 1A of that public process. So I think after this meeting, some preliminary ideas would be brought back and there'd be public meetings for that. Not sure of how long that would take though. And, in just the virtual world that we're working in as well.
Sure.
But I would say we're maybe a year earlier than typical for these. So that I would imagine there'll be a number of opportunities for further conversations about the type of project and then getting into the design of the project.
Okay. I suspect this project will generate a fair amount of input. So
I would imagine.
I'm sure you've seen some controversial projects in the region before. So
sure, and I guess I would go back to the idea that there was a lot of work done to not have a stoplight on 9 and 202. If going back even to the Hillsborough bypass. And also, as I understand it, it's a kind of gets tricky with the design of some of the lanes coming into the intersection because of the bridge. And it could impact the bridge, but we can talk about that on the 25th again.
Sure. Okay. Any other questions from the board?
Has a question.
Yeah, I was wondering, you guys were doing a little bit on the rail trails. Have you still trying to continue on that trail to see if we can bring them back in Henniker?
So we haven't done much in Henniker recently. We were actually talking a little bit about the connection from Deering into Hillsborough right now with the Woods Woolen Mill. So, it's our staff are working an awful lot on various trails, but we've been really kind of concentrating on just a couple of other areas over the last year or so. Looking at the Suncook Valley rail trail connections in the Pittsfield, Epsom, Pembroke area.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, we have some good sections in Henniker, though.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd love to explore that, add more trail.
especially it's been really, we'll go out and do some trail counting, and even last summer with the pandemic, the amount of folks that were out on the trails, and you could quantify those numbers, and we all know we were all out there, had to get out. So there's been a lot of demand for additional trails in the region.
Yep.
Good stuff. Further questions from the board?
Do we have anything else in the 10-year plan besides this intersection? Does Henniker have anything in it?
That's the big project.
Yeah, that's the only one?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, good.
Now, hopefully there's good luck with the TAP application process. I know that Joe's working on that, and Joe, if you need anything from us, I know it was a pretty quick timeline to get that application in.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, I've been actually talking to Dean a little bit about it. We have a Zoom meeting tomorrow about it. So, yep.
Okay. Final questions from the board. I'd say thank you very much for the update, and we'll look forward to seeing you guys on the 25th.
Absolutely. Have a good
Thanks,
night.
Mike.
Thank you.
All right. Well,
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks. All right. Next up, item 6, update for 2021 town meeting. Cordell Johnston, I see you are out there, sir. Floor is yours. Can you unmute, Mr. Johnston?
He's all set and ready to go.
Good evening, Cordell.
Good evening, Chris. You're correct. I am out here. I talked to Joe, and we thought it would be good to check in regarding town meeting. We have the first session, the election, coming up on Tuesday, and I think we've gotten the hang of how to run an election during a pandemic, having done it in September and November, and presumably this will be a little bit easier. We obviously don't get nearly as many people turning out for town elections, unfortunately. It'd be nice if we did, but presumably a smaller number. So I think I'm really not sure. We need to talk to the school whether we're going to be able to set up exactly the same way as we did in November, because my understanding is school is in session on Tuesday. But in any event, we should be able to. We still have the protective equipment, and should be able to take all of the same precautions that we took in November. And then the second session, the business session, is still, I assume, the selectmen are still planning to go ahead with that on March 13th, Saturday, at 1 o'clock. And the plan is that we are going to meet in the gym at the school with the cafeteria as a sort of spillover, so that we can accommodate everyone with appropriate social distancing. And I know Joe has been talking with an audio visual expert who knows how we can connect and have audio, I believe both audio and video capability in the cafeteria, so that people will be able to participate fully from either room. Not quite the high-tech thing that we tried to do last year, which did not work out so well, but using a little bit of technology to enable people to participate from 2 different rooms. So I guess I don't have anything that needs action from the board. I've been looking at the warrant. Obviously, we have at least one ballot vote that will be required, the bond vote on the wastewater treatment plan, and that will be that is the first item on the warrant. Other than that, it's, as Henniker town warrants go, relatively short. So I hope we can move it along relatively quickly. And, you know, not be spending 10 hours there. And I assume that the, I assume that the selectmen have or will have their assignments as far as who's going to be talking about each warrant article. And I guess that's, well, the other thing is, there is still a mask mandate in effect statewide. So people will be expected to wear masks, both on Tuesday the 9th and on Saturday the 13th. So, yep, Leon, I'm glad to see you have yours. So that's all I have, unless anyone has any questions or any changes that you want to let me know about.
Well, the only question I got, and I'm sure it'll be asked, but for those that wish to attend the town meeting that do not want to wear face masks, they will be required to wear face masks, correct? There will be no separate room.
There will be no separate room, although I guess we might create a separate section because the mask mandate does allow for, you know, medical exceptions, people who can't wear masks. And so if there is someone who claims that he or she cannot wear a mask, we would ask them to sit in a separate section. And I assume that we will have a police officer there, not that I anticipate arresting anyone, but maybe someone who is a little better at that kind of interaction than I am, because I do not want to go around telling people you have to wear a mask.
Fair enough. Joe, will we be able to accommodate that?
Accommodate the police?
No, the maskless group.
Yeah, I think, I mean, we did it the last town meeting. We did have a little area for people, and I think we can accommodate it again. So,
Very good. And I'm assuming the police will be there anyway. They're usually there.
Right.
All right.
And I guess while I have the floor, just I'm sure I don't need to do this, but just want to confirm with Joe that the town crew will be available on Monday to set up for Tuesday.
yep, Kristen's already aware of it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. I just saw a text from the police chief that they will be there. So thank you. Thank you, chief.
Excellent.
Cordell, anything else?
I don't have anything else.
Questions from the board?
Nope.
Very good.
Pleasure to see all of you.
Thank you, Cordell. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Cordell.
Thank you.
All right. Next up is item 7, a request to be added to the tow rotation of J&M Towing and Sizemore Motors. Joe, you want to run point on this?
So I'll start it off, and then I'm going to hand it off to Chief French, who I believe is already ready to unmute and go for it. The town's been approached by these two companies. They've been asked to add to the tow rotation, J&M Towing and then Sizemore Motors. Per the selectmen policies for our towing policy, according to the qualification section, any towing company with at least one properly equipped wrecker in a storage yard in a properly zoned area capable of holding at least 10 or more vehicles and doing business within a reasonable distance from Henniker town limits shall be eligible for duty wrecker list. Preference shall be given to local tow services. However, if no local service is willing or capable of providing services, the police department reserves the right to seek services from other towing companies. So when we go on to read the policy, basically the board has the ability or has the authority to dictate who is on this tow policy with input from the police chief. So I'm going to hand it off to Chief French and let him kind of speak a little bit more about this and go from there.
So I just want to make a couple quick points. One is that this is the selectmen's policy and it's not PD policy. So I'm not trying to tell you what to do with this at all or step on anyone's toes that's on the board. The other piece is we have had no problems with the two companies that we have. So this is not me coming in here asking for more people to be added. Over the long history of this policy, I can't really think of any time we've had any problems with any of the local companies we've had. We don't have a lot of towing that goes on, so there's not a ton of business that comes out of this. But the other piece that I wanted to touch on is that once I looked at this policy, clearly it's time for this to be updated. So I'm going to like to come before the board in another meeting, obviously, with some recommendations on what to change and how we can address the policy as a whole.
How many cars do we tow each year, just roughly?
I really don't have a great number. If I look at our DWI arrests, for example, most always those are cars that are towed. Last year was 30 or 35 arrests for that. So maybe 40, 50 a year as a whole. So we're not looking at a ton of cars every week.
Okay. All right. Questions from the board?
Would it make sense to hold off on any approvals until the chief comes back with his proposal on how to modify the policy?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Chief, did you say you never had any issue with using any of the local companies?
Correct. For as long as I can remember, this hasn't been a problem for us.
Okay. All right, Peter?
Yes, I think the concern over the years has been the time frame of which these companies can respond. And years and years ago, that may have been a problem, but from what I understand, it's worked out very well in the last 10 years or so. And the two companies that are doing the job in Henniker are doing it well, from what I understand. And the time frame of response is not a problem. So I have no problem endorsing those two and limiting our services to those two companies who are truly local companies.
Very good. Scott?
Yeah, who's the other one? One's got to be Mr. Oaklane. Who's the other one?
Advanced.
Advanced?
Yes.
Okay. Leon?
I see no reason to add any more than the two local ones. And in any situation, if we had an ice storm with a pile up of 50 cars, then anybody in the area that's in the business would be called by the police department anyway. And the chief obviously has the addresses of these two outfits, and if push comes to shove and we need more help, they're not going to turn down the job.
Okay. Further questions from the board? I also note that the board has a policy of supporting locally owned businesses as well in the town of Henniker. So, and if there hasn't been any issue with using the two local companies, I really, we got enough broken. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yep.
Further questions from the board? All right, Joe, you looking for a suggested motion on this?
I don't think, I don't think a motion is really necessary because we're already utilizing the two Henniker companies. I think a motion would have been necessary if we were looking to add any additional companies. And if you're not looking to do that, I don't think a motion is necessary.
Okay.
I think, Mr. Chairman, the consensus can be relayed in the minutes, so that'd be, official.
That's what I was going to say. By consent, we aren't adding anybody.
Everybody good by consent to not add any tow companies?
Consensus.
Why don't you put your hand up if you're good with consensus? Peter? Okay, 5-0. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Next up is item number 8. It's the speaking order for the Town warrants. This is, everybody's got a copy of their book?
Yeah, I'll share it on my screen, Chris.
Sure.
Design of some of the lanes coming into the intersection.
Who is that? Okay, blue pages. Tia has the, so we're starting with 7, correct?
Correct. Or
No, 6.
6.
6. Right there.
Or actually, well, hang on.
It should be the operating budget, which is number 8. No, that's not it.
No,
No,
4,
4.
actually, we start with
Hold
number
on.
4, which is
4 is
the
wastewater.
Hold
wastewater.
on. There we go.
There we go. Wastewater, Joe, that'll be presented by the engineers, correct?
That is correct. They will be there.
Okay, and who, just,
It's
Um,
Underwood. His name
Underwood.
is, yep. Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'm getting a chat too, just so you're aware. Michael Plant, which is J&M Towing, would like an opportunity to address the board.
If the rest of the board is okay with that, we can allow it. Okay, can you unmute Mr.
Yep.
Plant? Go ahead, Mr. Plant.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity. I won't take much of your time. The reason I requested to be added or have my company added to the tow rotation was that recently other towns have been adding other tow companies to their tow rotations. Ware currently has added several other out-of-town companies, including Danny's out of Henniker. What I'm looking for is the fair and reasonable opportunity to have the opportunity in Henniker that Danny's has been afforded in the town of Ware. We're a provider to multiple police departments, multiple troops of the state police, and we're based mere 1.8 miles away from the Henniker town line. And so response times is not an issue as far as we're concerned. We're a small family-owned business. I'm the owner. My wife and I own the business. My sons run the trucks. We're just looking for a fair and reasonable opportunity with the town of Henniker. I spoke with Chief French a few times. He said I explained the process about going through the select board as well to get added to the roster. What I bring to the table is a fair and honest business, being retired military, AAA provider with many other issues. We're eminently qualified to do this job. We also currently have a contract with New England College in Henniker to provide all their towing services in town. So my request is simple. I'm looking for the fair and reasonable opportunity that my town is affording to other out-of-town companies. And that's my request. So, and I thank you for your time, and I'd love to answer any questions if you have them.
Great, thank you. In light of that information, does the board wish to ask any questions of Mr. Plant?
Well, I would say that, since he does spend time in the town, if the need comes up, I'm sure that we would have his address to help us out.
Sir, I'm more looking for, Chief French already has our information. We're considered a backup tow company for the town of Henniker, I believe now, by the chief. I'm looking to be added as a full weekly participant along with the other 2 companies. And again, I have 3 trucks. I can respond to many accidents in many towns at once. I also have secured storage facilities in multiple towns to store these vehicles. My company is well qualified to do this. I'm just looking for what the other tow companies have been afforded, you know, by the folks at the Ware Police Department and the other towns. Merely all I'm looking for.
Thank you. Now, how many tow companies are in Ware?
Currently, they have 5 on their rotation. Policy was just updated as of the 1st of February.
And was that because of specific non-performance by the existing companies that they added, or what was the rationale?
No, it's they tightened up their policy a little bit. They had a couple of companies from Bedford, one from Bedford and one from Bow. Obviously, response times were a factor in those decisions. So they just tightened up their policies to bring the companies in closer to the town of Ware.
Okay.
We're also, you know, like I said, we tow for state police up on 89. We also tow for state police out in the county roads in Hillsborough County. And we're one of only 3 companies on the Goffstown police rotation.
Okay. Have you towed for the Henniker Police in the past?
A few times in the past couple of years, we've been called up and we have towed.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from the board for Mr. Plant?
Did the chief leave?
Nope, chief is still, well, I see his thing
He's
there.
here. Yeah, no, he's still here.
Did you have a question for the chief, Scott?
No, I just wanted to know if, you know, what his thoughts would be on having Mr. Plant be part of the roster.
Chief, you want to chime in?
There we are. I'm sorry, what was the question?
Yeah, Mr. Plant said he's done some work for us and he works for the college. So just wondered if you'd consider adding him to the list that we have.
Like Mr. Plant said, he's on as an alternate. So if we do have problems with the other 2 companies, then we have definitely reached out to him. But as far as the weekly thing goes, that kicks back to unfortunately back to the board. Again, we haven't had any problems with the 2 companies that we have now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, chief. Does the board wish to revisit its decision in any way, shape, or form? I'm not seeing a whole lot of support, Mr. Plant. I appreciate you making the effort, but perhaps when the chief of police brings forward the changes for the policy, it's an issue that we could perhaps revisit at a future date.
No, I understand that. I thank you for the opportunity.
Okay.
My concern was that, you know, the town of Ware is afforded great and reasonable opportunity to out-of-town companies, and I was looking for that from the town of Henniker as well. Just trying to increase my business as well.
Certainly understand that. It's a commendable goal. I do know that the board also likes to support its local businesses as best it can. The issues in the last 10 years, I guess the board is content with as it is right now. But the chief of police wants to change some of the policies going forward, so we can certainly review it at that time.
Okay.
And I want to thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you. Appreciate the
All right.
effort. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We will circle back to the warrant speakers. And I believe item 4 was, or warrant article 4 was Underwood Engineering. And item 5 is the operating budget.
And that's usually you.
I think I was just voluntold. All right, I'll do that one.
Does the board need anything else from me?
No, I think we're all, well, I can't speak for the board, but I'm all set. Anybody else for the chief? Enjoy your evening, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll do the operating budget. Moving along to 6, road
That's that's going to be a collaborative effort between me and Leon.
Okay. Item number 7 is the 10-wheel dump truck.
Yep, that's gonna, Leo.
Leo?
Yep.
Okay. Item number 8, 150,000 to be added to the highway equipment capital reserve. Is that,
I can take that one with Leo.
okay. Item number 9 is 125 to town tech. Anybody want to take a bite at that one?
I'll take that one.
Scott Osgood? Everybody good with that? Okay,
Scott, are you aware of all the issues?
Not yet.
all right. Is the revaluation reserve fund, $20,000.
I'll take that one too.
Okay. Item number 11 is a sum of $20,000 for the town-owned building expendable trust fund. Leon, you're being pretty quiet.
I ain't volunteering until somebody asks me to.
Leon,
Want to take that one?
you want to do that one?
Got it.
Perfect. Next up is $100,000 to the fire equipment capital reserve. I'll be more than happy to take that one on if nobody has any objections. Okay. Next up is 42,000 for the fire equipment capital reserve to withdraw for the extraction equipment.
Yeah, this should be the fire chief or
Yep.
fire rescue chief.
Fire chief, fire and rescue chief.
Which one?
Both. I would say both are going to be in on
Yeah.
that one.
Okay.
Next up is $70,000 for the ambulance capital reserve fund. I would assume that'd be Chief Alcoin.
Yeah.
Okay. For those following the home game, that is item number 14 on the warrant. Item 15 is the sum of $50,000 for the police building maintenance fund. We have a speaker for that one. Want to be,
Yeah, so I'd like to make a proposal. Scott, would you take this one and I can take the technology one?
No, I'd keep the technology one.
Okay.
so 50,000 police building. I see Tita's name written next to it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Next up is $5,000 for police department equipment trust.
I can do that one.
Tia. 217,654. That'll be the library trustees.
I'll take that.
The
Okay.
library trustee, so the library trustee, Scott, won't be there?
If the trustees do make it, they will do it, but if they don't, I will.
Okay. Sum of $60,000 for the new highway block grant.
Yeah, I can take that.
Okay. Sum of $10,000 for bridge capital reserve. Peter, are you
Leon.
still hiding out there?
Yes, I can you guys hear me? I've tried to
No.
interject it.
We
Yes.
can hear you now. Do you want that one?
Peter, put your hand up.
Okay. We're on what, the road, bridge money?
Yeah.
I'll take that. I'll take that.
Okay. Did you, Peter, since you were having a little technical difficulties, did you want some other ones?
Well, there was one in earlier, give me a couple of minutes and before we close this agenda item, I'll tell you, but there was one other.
Okay.
Oh, a town building fund.
That one was for Leon. Leon, you want to switch?
That might be the only one, Leon.
I didn't see too much of a protest for Leon.
Not at all.
Okay, so
All right, next up is $2,500 for Parks Equipment Trust.
I'll take it.
Peter. Next up is 630,000 for a wastewater treatment plant. This would be
And,
Kenny Levesque.
yep,
Okay. Item number 22, 587,000 for the Cogswell Spring Waterworks. That will be the water commissioners.
mhm.
Item 24, the sum of $8,700 for stabilizing the riverbank for his park. Is that,
Sounds like a Scott one to me.
It'd be Susan.
I'll give that one to Tia.
No,
Susan.
no, I don't think so.
No, I think Susan will take that one.
All
That's the
right,
Scott one.
there we go. And the petitioners will probably be doing 24 for the exemption. Okay, anything else on the town warrant? Peter, did you want us to revisit any of these?
Nope, just a couple of them, that's fine.
All right,
I'll be on standby to help or explain anything if I'm needed, but everything looks good to me now.
okay. Any other questions on that item there? All right, item
Looks
number
good.
9. We're good? Okay, item number 9 is update the temporary travel policy for vaccinated employees. Joe, you want to run point on this?
Sure. I was approached by Chief Morse and Chief Aucoin, and Chief Aucoin was going to try to make it, but he received a call in Bow, so he's not able to jump on. I believe Chief Morse is trying to jump on right now, so hopefully he'll be able to as
He is
well.
listening. He's listening. Yeah.
Okay. So on August 11th, 2020, the Select Board instituted a travel policy that basically stipulated that town employees were not allowed to leave New England. We follow the guidance that the state and the CDC had issued, and the state and CDC has now updated their most recent issue in January, basically allowing people to travel if they've received the vaccine. And then if they're essential workers, there's a piece of it that allows them to still work if they're necessary, because if they had an exposure, things like that. Most recently, I think it was Exeter kind of utilized this because they had some highway department people who came down with COVID and had a quarantine, but they isolated them to trucks so that they could still plow. So at the request of Chief Morse and Chief Aucoin, I did update a proposed policy for the board, basically stipulating exactly what the state has put in for guidance. And that's what I'm presenting to you right now.
Sorry about that. I'm getting.
Yeah.
Tia had her hand up.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tia. That was probably an extended car warranty. Go ahead, Tia.
So the board has kind of already taken this up and not agreed at this time to move forward with any policy changes. And I that's exactly where I am still from that conversation. It was even on the news outlets last night and this morning that the CDC is asking people not to, go and start traveling just because you've been vaccinated. There are other variants. And I think we need to, especially in this early phase of the vaccination process, still take some precautions. And if employees decide to travel, I think they still need to be quarantining once they come back, if that's what they're going to do.
Very good. It was my understanding that when the policy was initially passed, there was a little bit of a misunderstanding as to what was transpiring, and that both chiefs were not in favor of passing this policy. Do I have that correct, Joe?
So Chief Aucoin originally was a little, I guess, was the confusion piece. And speaking to Greg now, though, he is supporting this, which is one of the reasons I've come back before the board with it.
Okay. I just as soon let the department heads run their various areas there. And we also have Chief Aucoin is also the head of public health in the town. If he feels that it's safe for their employees after they've been vaccinated to travel, I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but I would entertain a motion to reverse it. Scott?
Yeah, I'd vote against it. I mean, you know, things are still happening. I think it's a good idea to still keep the powder dry and just wait it out.
Okay,
Yeah, I think it would be best, like, not a majority of the population has been vaccinated yet. I think there's still a risk there. So let's keep it on the books for now. We can revisit it at a different time.
I understand it, but I mean, the whole premise about vaccination is to get the country back going in a forward motion. And if the two chiefs of our both life safety oriented areas feel comfortable enough, far be it from me to get in the way of that. I don't know how the rest of the board feels. Scott?
Well, those guys have probably had the vaccines. I mean, it's
Right.
part of their job, you know, so they're safer, but that doesn't mean they don't carry the disease. So it doesn't really change anything.
Most of what we've heard coming out, at least in news reports and stuff like that, about the CDC guidance and all the talking heads, we're still literally months away from being through the danger period, or whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
They're talking about having people vaccinated by the end of May or June for the seriously at risk categories, but there's still a lot more people they're talking about late summer before the other categories, which have a lot more people in them, get vaccinated.
I heard the news today, though, that Johnson & Johnson is going crazy. And it's gonna bring in the end date much quicker. Although it's not going to be as efficient as the others, it's still going to be very efficient.
Yeah, but that's just for the vaccine production. That doesn't mean the actual distribution, which we seem to have continuous issues with. It doesn't matter what state you're in. So
Mr. Ch-
Peter?
Yeah, I think I'd like to propose a compromise here. I'm kind of torn. Being in an administrative position and an elected official, I'd like to make a suggestion that we revisit this in 30 days. Keep it the way it is and revisit it in 30 days.
I
Okay.
think that's a good idea.
I'd be willing to do that.
Joe, you had your hand up?
Chief Morris is asking if he can address the board.
Absolutely.
Chief, you can go ahead and unmute. You should have the rights.
All right, thank you. I'm wondering why the board would go against the New Hampshire guidelines and the CDC guidelines on this.
Anybody that wishes to keep the policy as is, want to address the chief's concerns? I'm kind of in agreement with him and that we should
Well,
reverse.
the CDC spokespeople have also just come out today and yesterday speaking that people need to keep up the precautions for now. Just because certain people have been vaccinated, it does not mean that they can't carry the variants. They're even thinking that there's going to be another uptick as people start traveling, especially for spring break. So I think right now, especially since we're in the first initial phases of the vaccine rollout, we need to wait a little bit to see how these new variants come into play and to also see how effective this vaccine actually is.
Any other questions from the board for the fire chief? Well, I'll make a proposal. Go ahead, Peter.
Well, I was going to make a motion.
Go ahead.
If that's in order. It seems like I had support before. I move that this board wait for 30 days before they make any changes in the policy being discussed and bring it up at the nearest meeting after 30 days.
I'll second it.
Discussion still open?
Absolutely.
I haven't seen the policy that's being voted on. I would think you'd share it with the department heads if you have a policy that the department heads have to abide by. or at least involve us in the conversation that affects our employees.
Yeah.
So the policy was emailed to you, Chief, already in the packet that you received. And the policy that is in drafted is the exact same as the state of New Hampshire's policy, which is what we followed the last time as well.
So if we're following New Hampshire policy, then this shouldn't even be brought to a vote, because New Hampshire policy doesn't restrict the employees from leaving if they've been vaccinated.
They don't restrict their state employees. That we're following their policy as far as the way I drafted it, but the Board of Selectmen still have the authority to decide what happens with town employees.
I think we're overstepping our bounds in that aspect.
So Joe, if we're following the state travel policy does the state of New Hampshire allow employees to travel once they're vaccinated?
They do, yes.
Are they allowed to travel outside of the New Hampshire?
They're allowed to travel outside New England.
So they're allowed to travel to Florida, Texas?
If they've received both vaccine shots and they're 14 days after the second shot, yes.
Okay. So I question my other board members if by and large, we follow the state policy regarding pay rates, positions, grades, and all that stuff. And why would we go against the state regarding this policy?
Well, the CDC spokespeople have also just come out and said that states are opening up too quickly and people need to stay put.
Right, but the CDC also allows, if I read correctly, that you are allowed to resume travel once you are post 14 days second shot as well. So
They're still saying to use caution, Chris.
Well, of course you use caution, but if you're vaccinated, you're going to go against federal and state policy. I have no medical background to make these assumptions.
I think it's common sense, because the people that are going to be leaving can still get the disease and bring it back and spread it.
Right.
Because the vaccine doesn't do anything like that. And that's why I think it's better to protect ourselves a little bit longer.
I don't understand.
Mr. Chairman, we have a motion on the floor.
Yeah, correct.
Jim wanted to speak again.
Go ahead, Chief.
I just didn't understand why Scott is saying that. I don't know what he's using to prove the fact that what he just mentioned, because normally once you've had a vaccine or you've had the virus, you are not a spreader, you're not a carrier.
No, but you can still get the virus to you.
Well, and also with these new variants, it does it because there is a potential that they could get in your system. There is just enough difference, and they don't know how these vaccines are going to work on some of those variants. So
I just think you're treading on thin ice, and you're trying to pin people into a gated community, which I don't think you should be doing. You're letting people into this town.
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
Well, it's a policy that's directly affecting his department as well as all the rest of the departments. So I just assume.
But we have a motion on the floor.
All right. Okay, Chief, we're gonna shut.
Leon has his hand up.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm just letting the chief know that we're gonna debate the motion at hand. Leon.
The reason Peter's motion appeals to me, Jim indicated he hadn't had time to look at the policy proposed. I see nothing wrong with a cooling off period for a couple, 30 days, as Peter said. Get department heads' response to the policy draft.
Exactly.
Have the sorting out process going on with all these people that are talking about, whether they know what they're talking about or not. They're making pronouncements about what should and shouldn't be done. Let's let the dust settle for a month and then get everybody's input and come back.
All right. The only question I have on something like that is, are we going to be applying science, or are we going to be applying feelings to that 30-day window at the end of it? Suppose cases continue to fall like they have been. Are we going to
We're gonna end up
What-
making a
what-
subjective judgment anyway.
So we're going with our gut.
Yep.
All right, I'm good with that. I
Yeah.
just wanted to make sure, we talk about it. Okay, we have a motion on the floor to revisit this policy in 30 days' time. Is that correct? So that's more or less April 1st.
The first meeting after 30 days.
Okay, the motion was made by Selectman Flynn, seconded by Vice Chair Hooper. We will do a roll call vote. I will vote against this. I would vote that we open up the travel policy for all employees that are quarantined once they've finished their vaccination for the 14 days. So I will vote no on the motion. Peter. All right, Vice Chair Hooper.
Yes.
I vote yes.
Yes. Leon,
Yes,
Scott.
Yes.
All right. The motion carries 4 votes to 1. We will revisit the policy in 30 days' time.
Chief Morris has another question for the board as well.
Sure. Go ahead, Chief.
I believe when I spoke to, I believe it was you the other day, Chris, the policy was still being written. I had not seen the finished policy on that.
The policy was in the board materials, which I believe were up on the website, on Friday, Joe?
Yeah, and I also emailed the packets out to the department heads every week, every board meeting, so that they have a copy of the agenda in the packet so that they're aware of what's coming up.
So this is the agenda that we're just voted on,
Correct.
the policy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Chief, will it cause much heartburn for 30 days stay?
I just think you're overstepping your bounds, going against state and federal.
I tend to agree with you. Unfortunately, that view did not have the prevailing votes. So we're going to revisit in 30 days' time, and hopefully we can swing a few more board members this way. Hopefully it doesn't cause too much heartburn with your staff that wants to go on vacation. Anything else regarding item 9? Okay, moving along. Minutes, item 10. First up are minutes of February 2nd, 2021, public minutes. Any edits on that?
Page 2,
Page
board
2.
discussion. In reference to the highway block grant is only showing 60,000.
That's correct. It's a place marker right now.
Okay. All right. Page 6, third paragraph down. She's got the flood plain, not the flood plane. Plane that flies is there. You want the one that's on the prairie land?
Good catch, good catch.
All right. Page 7.
wait a minute, Scott, page 6. Which
Yeah.
paragraph are you talking about?
Third one down.
Well, look at the second one. Funds have been expelled from the account.
Which page you on?
Expended, I think.
Page 6, second paragraph, 4th line, first
Yeah.
word, expelled should be.
Confirm the funds have been
Expense.
expelled.
Yeah, that's a good call.
Right. Okay, page 7. Warrant Article 22, Selectman Osgood explained there's no tax impact if the warrant is to reestablish the wall and stop the erosion. I think it's supposed to read something else. We wrote to reestablish the walk, WALK. It's for the Azalea Park, not the wall.
Okay,
It's just a grammatical problem with the next paragraph. Susan Adams, middle line, releases to funds somehow or other doesn't sound correct to me.
Mhm.
releases of funds. Is that what she was talking about?
She wants to release the funds.
Yeah, the instead of two.
Right above that too should say trails, not tails. Or trials, I'm
Trials.
sorry. Yeah, it shouldn't be trials, it should be trails.
Trails. Oh, good. We're all getting better at this.
Further edits on public minutes of February 2nd.
Yeah, so on page 3, it's 1, 2, 3 paragraphs from the bottom. Responded to the motion made at the meeting was to roll over, it should be operating funds from 2020 to pay for 2021.
So just stick operating in there, but between over and funds? Is that what it's supposed to be?
Mhm.
Further edits on February 2nd.
Page 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Of the Selectman Flynn one, third row down on the far right, instated. Increased morale without being instated. Instated. I don't know what that means.
Well, she uses the term instated twice there and 3 lines down.
Instated again, yep. Next to the last line.
I don't know what that means. I really don't. I don't think I said the word instated though.
Nope.
Stated might be.
I think you should just remove without being instated.
Yeah.
There's a problem up above that with the line with Vice Chair Hooper. Chair Blombeck seconded the motion. Died, ? Review tape. Does anybody remember what really happened there?
Which paragraph is that?
Cut
Page
25,000
9.
from White Birch.
I guess you'd call it the 5th paragraph down. The bold print.
Yeah, wasn't that a 3-2 vote?
Yeah, the motion died. It didn't have the support to
Yeah,
cut the budget.
yeah, so it was 2-3.
We still on page 9?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Further edits of February 2. Entertain a motion to approve with the following edits made.
So move.
Moved by Leon, seconded by
I'll second.
Vice Chair Hooper. Roll call vote. Chris, yes. Vice Chair Hooper.
Yes.
Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Flynn,
Yes.
Mr. Osgood.
Yes.
Very good. All right. Item number 11, any questions on the January department reports?
It's good to me.
There are no questions on item 11. We will move to item 12, which is the town administrator report. Joe?
Thank you, sir. So quick COVID-19 update. As of February 25th, the town had 8 active cases. We had 11 new cases in the past 14 days for a total of 181 cumulative cases. The town has, residents have been tested 4,152 times, and our positivity rate right now is at 6.4%. Vaccinations, the state did announce that they hope to start phase 2A of vaccination rollout by the end of the month. Phase 2A does cover all teachers and childcare workers, and it's about 75,000 people that are going to be looking to vaccinate. The next group after that's going to be 2B, which will be people of the ages of 50 to 64. They are hoping to expedite it with the additional vaccines approved by Johnson & Johnson.
Joe, I just wanted to add one thing to that I heard in the news today, that they're taking the Speedway and filling it with people and with the vaccines over the weekend.
Yeah, they're going to be doing 12,000 vaccinations between Saturday, Sunday, and Monday at the raceway, and they're hoping that it's a positive experience because they're going to be looking to do a little bit more if it does go off without a hitch. And they are going to be using the Johnson & Johnson for that particular vaccination.
I'm scheduled.
No,
to
I
be-
don't think so.
I'm scheduled to be there at 11:40 Saturday. And to get that appointment was really not a very fun experience because of the amount of time. The 211 number has been crashed. It's just been so inundated with calls. I probably left my cell phone sitting, talking to me about the delay for an hour before I got through. When I did, I was processed very easily, but it's the numbers involved are just swamping the system.
Yep.
Yeah, so Joe and I will be the last ones in the last phase, right?
We will be, yes. I think we're 3B.
Yeah.
So
Stop being a teacher. Stop being a teacher.
Yeah.
They're going in.
I'm happy to report I had both vaccinations.
You had both, Peter? Yeah. Now, from what I heard, it's everybody that's getting
Yeah.
a second
I
vaccination.
got them at my place of employment. I was considered an essential employee. The fire department, emergency management people put this together. And the health department of Manchester came out and did it, I guess, along with the Goffstown Fire, who ran the program for New Boston. So, but Kathy still has it. She's on the 20th.
I'm going for my second shot on Friday this week. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah. That's what you have having cancer, a heart condition, and an aneurysm in your head. Puts you right to the front of the line.
So on next Tuesday, we do have town election, which means we are going to need coverage for the polls. We have 2 select board members that are going to be seeking re-election, and I don't believe they are allowed in the gym for that most part because of that.
Darn it.
We can go in to vote.
You can go in to vote. That is correct.
Yep.
And
we can hold signs outside.
Yep, you can.
It really pains me not to be there for you guys.
Yeah, me too.
So,
me too.
Unfortunately, there's 3 of you left, and we do need a quorum. So if you can make yourselves available, and of course, if we have to, Cordell can always swear in a temporary selectman to meet that requirement as well. So just a quick reminder.
Prefer the afternoon if I can have it.
You can come whenever you want because we're gonna need it. So
I'd like to tell you that due to the fact that my place of employment has delayed their elections for 3 months, I won't have a conflict that day like I usually do going back and forth. So I'll be taking the day off down the road, spending most of it here in Henniker at the polls.
Yeah, and I should be available. I might just have to
Did you
step
hear
out.
me?
Yeah, we did, Peter.
Yeah, to take a few
Okay.
calls.
So I wanted to just kind of update everybody too. I don't know if you've been following what's happening in Wyndham with the electronic voting machines. We did get a couple phone calls about this. So I just wanted to update the board. Basically, there was a problem. A Democratic state representative candidate requested a recount after losing her race by 24 votes. The recount resulted showed that 4 Republican candidates each gained approximately 300 votes, and the other candidate lost 99 votes. The other 3 Democratic candidates each gained in the range of 18 to 28 votes, which is not unusual in a recount of machine-counted ballots in a town the size of Wyndham. The same candidates for state representatives who won on election night were also the winners of the recount. The recount has been appealed to the New Hampshire Ballot Law Commission, and they held a public hearing and voted unanimously to uphold the election of the 4 Republican candidates. The Deputy Secretary of State did state that the Wyndham AccuVote, which is the same system or machine that we have in Henniker, did not have any mistakes or any of the manipulation to the machine that could have caused it to malfunction. The towns do have a right to not use the AccuVote system if they choose not to, but that would result in hand counting all ballots. So I just wanted to kind of update everybody. Again, there was no major issues that they found, and obviously the ballot commission did uphold the votes. So
They have 4 new machines, and they're gonna have a public available test of those 4 machines.
so every town has to have a public a viewing of the ballots being checked or the machine being checked.
Right.
We have actually already posted ours. Ours will be for tomorrow at 11 o'clock, and the public is welcome to come in and go and watch the town clerk as she makes sure the machine is operating properly. So next up, the town received an Azalea Park donation for $3,500, and I wanted to bring it to the board's attention to see what their pleasure is. In speaking to the chair of the Azalea Park Committee, this was an anonymous donations from multiple people, it sounded like, to accumulate to this $3,500. But again, it's anonymous, so I have really no way of knowing who gave it. Typically, in times past, we at least have a person to accredit it to, so that when we're accepting the donation, we're accepting it from this person for this cause. So I wanted to see how the board wanted to proceed with this $3,500 that we have received from Azalea Park.
It sounds like if there's a bunch of contributions, somebody's been sitting collecting that money and holding it. Is that a fair assumption?
According to the email, it was several donations, so that would be my assumption. But the email I received back from the chair of Azalea Park was very broad, so it's tough for me to really tell. It was a bank check as well, so it's not even like it wasn't a personal check that I could say this person is the one who's drafting it. And there is a copy of the check in the packet for you to take a look at.
Peter, did you have your hand up?
Oh, I was just shaking it. No, but now that you
Okay.
acknowledge me, I think that perhaps I did check the policy, and it does say that over $5,000 requires a public hearing. Under $5,000 does still require the selectmen to publicly accept any donations. And to do that, I really have a problem accepting a donation, even a group together without names. We've done it before, and somebody might suggest that we check with council on whether we can not accept or not insist on a name and not accept them as anonymous. I'd go along with that, but I have a problem just taking the check, depositing it, and having the board say we accept $3,500 from a group of people. I won't do it. I will not support that. I want to know a detailed accounting of who donated.
Well,
It doesn't say in the book you have to do that, though.
so my question is, how were these funds collected? Were there checks made out to Azalea Park and somebody just lumped them together with a bank check? Because all those individual transactions should have been coming to the town hall for deposit and for record keeping. So I guess there needs to be a conversation with the committee to make sure that they're following our internal controls and procedures.
Isn't it normal to just receive anonymous donations if somebody who wants to make a donation doesn't want to be publicly recognized?
Doesn't say you can't do that. It just says it has to go to the select board and they have to have a public hearing. Section 3, page 9. Acceptance of donations and gifts. Yep.
I mean, I'm happy to reach out to legal just to make sure there's no issues with accepting a anonymous donation. I do have the same concerns as Vice Chair Hooper stated, though. If this is for multiple people, how did the checks come in? I guess that would be my question. If they were made out to Azalea Park, or were they made out to a single individual and then they went and got a bank check? I don't know. But that would be my only concern.
Well, Susan didn't give you the check?
All I received was the bank check.
Okay.
But where I'm saying, if personal checks came in, did they come made out to Susan Adams? Is that how we're soliciting the donations, or were they made out to Azalea Park? I guess that's.
I would say it's pretty clear they've made out to Azalea Park.
But I don't know how she cashed them then if she has a bank check for $3,500.
Oh, I thought she gave you the bank check.
That's what I received, but
So it goes into the town fund for Azalea Park. It shouldn't be complicated.
So the other thing I would be running by legal is to see if we were to accept a check from a donor. In higher ed, you do this all the time. You receive the check, there's an agreement to remain anonymous. It says anonymous, but the town maintains the record of who made that donation still for its own internal purposes.
Doesn't say you have to do that.
Well, I think it would be in our best interest to run it by council. So if we do want to make an anonymous donation to the town, we have that clarified and we start building in the procedures to accept those gifts.
And waste money with a lawyer.
I'm happy to reach out to NHMA and get some free legal advice from them and see if they'd be willing to answer that question for us. So this way we're not hitting up Upton and Hatfield and getting billed for it.
And
Good idea.
Yeah, they got free lawyers.
Yep. So I'm happy to do that. And I can come back to the board with that decision, and then the board can decide how to proceed with the 3,500 if you're okay with that.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay.
All right, keep moving.
Yep. Town hall boiler, I reported last month, maybe it was, that our boiler failed our inspection. I did request the Department of Labor for an extension to get it replaced because we had a 30-day window to have it replaced or we'd be fined. So we haven't granted an extension until April 27th to bring the boiler into compliance. So hopefully after town meeting, that warrant will go through and we'll be able to take care of the boiler at town hall. 2149 Western Ave was something we dealt with about a year ago. This was a welfare liens. We had somebody who was looking to purchase a property and they were looking for the board to vacate the liens. I just wanted to let you know the board we did agree at one point to accept $10,000 to vacate those all out. And we did receive the $10,000. They have closed on the property and we have vacated the liens. And so the property is now back on the tax rolls as well.
Good.
There's just a blurb here. I'm not going to go ahead and read it all. It was more for information purposes. If you listen to the governor's address, there is some potential for maybe some increased funding for municipalities. That's what we're hoping for right now. Specifically revolving around the rooms and meals tax, it sounds like, is where we're really looking to make some strides. And the first vote through the House passed, which is a good thing as far as increasing the contributions. So I just wanted to pass that on to everybody. Again, I'm not going to go through and read the whole thing, but just wanted to.
so is that the one that you emailed us?
I emailed you a couple of them, I believe. Yes.
Yeah, so the only thing that I had a comment on was I have a concern of how they're doing the percentage breakdown or the increase breakdown for each community, having it based on, the school population, but
Yeah.
also, and those students in need. Henniker always is at the losing end of this calculation, and we've seen it in the past. So just because there's an increase, I'm going to warn everybody. We didn't get the big hit we did the last time, so we're probably not looking at that big of a surplus.
My concern right along has been with the Warren article that we reduced to $60,000. If some of that money trickles into a grant, the highway grant, I guess we keep any excess until next year and get approval to use it. Is that the way that's going to work?
So DRA told us that that's just basically a placeholder, that we are able to adjust that dollar amount in the event we are to get more. The issue is if we put, let's say, $100,000 in there and we only get 60, we're required to then, the town is required to come up with that balance of $40,000, which is why we went with what we know we're guaranteed. And then in the event we get more, we can adjust it as we go
Without going back to town meeting?
without going back to town meeting, according to DRA. Yes.
Then we can go ahead and do it run it the way Russ always has.
Yeah.
See what
I'll
happens
believe
later.
And
$20,000 out of Joe's paycheck is gonna be something, I'll tell you. Sorry,
And-
Joe, I'm just kidding.
it's fine.
Yeah, this is like being taped.
And that's all I have for you, Mr. Chairman,
That's okay.
and the board.
All right, further questions of Joe while he's on the line here? All right, not seeing anything. We'll do selectmen reports. I have nothing to report. Vice Chair Hooper,
I have nothing to report.
let's go with Peter.
There was a athletic committee meeting last week, and some of the discussion centered around a new web page they've developed. And they were ready to put it online this week, I believe, for the recreation. They also talked about updating the background check procedure. And for coaches, that's another thing. And that's about it. They softball signups are starting, and they think they're going to at least try to start a softball season. Baseball isn't, they're not sure yet. I'm sorry, girls softball. That's it, Mr. Chairman.
What do you got, Scott?
Nothing.
And Leon?
We had a road management committee meeting. Most of the discussion was about how unhappy they were with the reduction in the amount of the warrant article, and we talked about trying to firm up the figures for the projects that we've got on the docket. It looks like the easiest way to absorb the 150 grand reduction that you guys voted in is probably going to be to cut out the old Hillsborough Road, but it is some more, we got to do some more discussion about what our project rack up will be and try to get some better figures. We're having a hard time figuring out what's already either spent or allocated for different projects. For the ones hanging over from, the previous 2 years, there's a certain amount of mushiness to the calculations for the available balance.
Anything else on selectmen reports? All right, not hearing any. It's time for public commentary number 2. If there's any residents out there that wish to address the board on any issues that you didn't see addressed either today or you wanted to bring to our attention, please signal by waving your hands or making a text or however. Any members for public comment number 2? Tia, you seeing anything?
I'm not seeing anything.
Joe?
No, sir.
All right. Not seeing anything. I'll close down public commentary. And if there's nothing else before this board, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Don't move. Oh, look at that. In
Seconded.
unison. All right. All those in favor, Vice Chair? Yes. Vice
Yeah.
Chair Hoover, yes.
Yes.
Okay, we're good. Thank you all for attending this evening.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right.